This is the Financial Beat, helping you hit all the right notes in your financial plan. So sit back as we strike up the band. The Financial Beat with Logan Sadler starts now.
Welcome to the Financial Beat with Logan Sadler, VP, Chief Investment Officer at Ruggieri Financial, wherever you are today in Southern California. Thank you so much for being with us. I'm Ron Stutz. Always a pleasure to hang out with Logan Sadler. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing good, Ron. How are you doing?
All right, man. It's been kind of a busy time. You know, we just got through a lot of exciting stuff, including, college basketball and the Super Bowl. And I don't know, man. You watched the Super Bowl, didn't you?
Yeah, it's funny. I don't watch a lot of football much anymore just because it's been busy. But, you kind of have to watch Super Bowl, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I was kind of pulling for the 49ers to win that game, but, it didn't work out. So,
yeah, it looks like we got another little dynasty on our hands here is what the looks of it are, huh?
Oh, I think so, man. It's like they're in the Super Bowl about every year, aren't they?
Yeah, feels like he's been in the league 3 years and he's been in the Super Bowl 3 years in a row. It feels like, all right?
Yeah, exactly. Well, we're going to talk about a lot of financial matters today, as we always do, getting folks to and through retirement. But let me put your phone number out there first, Logan, before we get cranked up. 888-823-PLAN, 888-823-PLAN. You can have a discovery visit with Logan Sadler. All you got to do is call that number right now, 888-823-PLAN. We'll talk more about that a little bit later on today. Logan, I wonder if you saw this interesting story out of Lynchburg, Virginia, all the way across the country. The fire department there recently got a call that a local creek was suddenly mysteriously white. They quickly determined that it had been caused by an undetermined amount of waste milk that had been accidentally released into the creek. What is waste milk? I don't know why they characterize it that way. I'm not quite sure. It looks like they would have said, somebody spilled a whole lot of milk in the creek,
Yeah, I don't know if you ever dumped spilled milk into a river or any type of drink into something. It kind of dissipates pretty quick into the water. So for it to have to actually change the color of the water must have been a lot of milk.
Must have been right next to a dairy farm or something. So, at any rate, let's talk about
a herd of cattle.
let's talk about something that has a lot more sense when it comes to this show: presidential financial planning. You wouldn't turn to the president of the United States or former president to try and get any advice on financial planning because they really don't have a lot to worry about when it comes to that. They're pretty well set for life, I think.
Yeah. Most of the time they don't make much money, but they tend to get book deals and we can go down a rabbit hole on many other things. But they tend to get quite a bit of net worth after they're done, like you said. So they probably don't have a lot of finances to worry about later on.
Got health care for the rest of their lives and everything else. But in honor of President's Day, let's see what we might be able to learn about financial planning from some past presidents' quotes. George Washington once said, "When only one side of a story is heard and often repeated, the human mind becomes impressed with it." How often do we see the Wall Street machine create a narrative that becomes the accepted storyline and conventional wisdom regarding something in the financial world?
Yeah, I think you see that quite a bit, right? When you watch the news nowadays especially, there's always some type of new expert on, right? Or somebody that predicted I predicted the last recession, or I knew when '08 was going to happen, right? And this year the recession is going to happen again, right? And then all of a sudden it didn't happen, right? So I remember 2023, I think me and you talked about it quite a bit on the show, where the first few months of 2023 after 2022 being a bad year, a lot of the experts were on the news and a lot of these different forecasters were predicting a very, very bad year for 2023. And of course, it ended up being a pretty strong year overall, right? Hey, who would have known?
Yep.
And I think it's very interesting because a lot of these people that come on the news or that are on a lot of these Wall Street channels, a lot of them aren't even licensed to give investment advice anymore. Maybe they were at one time. So they're on there giving investment advice and shaping the narrative of what you should do with your financial matters when a lot of them aren't even financial advisors, right? They're not even sure on what your situation is supposed to look like and really the overall general census of what you should do in a financial plan. And they're just on there kind of reporting maybe some data or some information that they've gathered. And it really is amazing to me how a lot of individual consumers, a lot of people like me or you sitting on the couch, we tend to take what they say as kind of, as concrete, right? And I think it's really amazing to me how they've shaped so much of what people will do in their financial worlds when it's somebody that really doesn't even know your overall situation, or maybe not even licensed to give investment advice.
Yeah.
So I definitely think there's some more research and some due diligence that needs to be done on the average consumer to make sure you're getting advice from a credible source.
I think the key, and what you just said there, the one thing that jumped out at me is, this so-called expert doesn't have any idea what your individual situation is, and we're all different. And that's what you do is design financial plans for folks based on their individual needs and wants and desires and all that kind of thing. Probably the most famous quote that I'm going to mention here today is from JFK. I think everybody knows this one. Ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country. What if all financial advisors out there said, ask not what this potential client can do for me, but what I can do for this client?
Yeah. I mean, what a man with words, right? He was good. He was good at shaping those words around. And like you said, very famous quote. And I do agree, though, when you look at, a lot of these financial advisors are looking at how to grow their firm or make money or do those types of things. And a lot of them aren't really asking themselves, what can they do for their clients, right?
Yeah.
And I think a lot of what our firms tried to do over the years is really look at our clients and see how we can continuously add value to their plan, right? To their retirement, to their client experience working with us. All of it's about making things easier for the client. And I think a lot of what we do is trying to expand upon, adding, a lot of tax planning concerns were coming up. Well, let's add some tax planning to our overall process. A lot of clients are worried about risk. Well, let's make sure we have some tools and some strategies out there that help identify risk, right? Or help lower risk if needed. And I think that's what a lot of other firms should be trying to adapt is really what is it that the client is looking for and how can we make their life a little bit easier and how can we help really, serve the client in a better capacity, whether that makes it easier to do business by doing things like DocuSign or emails or whatever it might be, or by making sure you're expanding your product offering and your planning to include more of the things that maybe your clients are wanting to do. And I think that's something our firm has been very adaptable to over the years, to making sure we're constantly keeping up with what can make our clients' retirements easier and a little bit more easier to work with us and make things better for the client experience.
Okay, got another quote here for you, and this is from George Bush, not George W. Bush, but his father. He said, think about every problem, every challenge we face. The solution to each starts with education. Now, some financial professionals are really nothing more than salespeople, as you mentioned. How would clients' experiences change if advisors focus more on educating their clients than selling?
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, in every industry, you want to bring on new customers or new clients or sell more products or whatever it might be, right, to grow your business. But I think a lot of the times in the financial world, so many people focus so heavily on bringing on new clients, and selling, right? And I think a lot of the times what I think most advisors should be doing is really bringing more education to the table, because after all, I feel like that's really, one of the questions I ask in our discovery meeting, Ron, is I ask clients all the time, what is it that you're looking for out of a financial advisor, right? Well, what is it you were hoping to gain out of this relationship? And they're not like, some guy to sell me a cool product, right? Or some guy or girl to help give me the best return. That's normally not the answer. The answer typically is, I'm looking for someone to help educate me and my spouse and really help, guide us through this tricky time, right? A lot of times it's some form of that answer. And I think that's very, very a big testament to what people are wanting, right? They want someone to help educate them on some of these tricky tasks like Social Security, Medicare, estate planning, taxes, right? Investments, all this stuff that can be very, very confusing for the average person. They're wanting someone to help relay that to them in a way that they can understand, but also in a way that maybe to position it to where it can help them. And now, yes, there might be some tools and some services and things like that you might need to present to be able to accomplish some of the things you talk about. But I really think that's what they're looking for, is someone to help identify what their retirement is going to look like, help them identify what their goals and their concerns are, and then help them display some of the obstacles and things like that that might be in their way throughout retirement by a way of educating them of some tools and some strategies to help implement to make it maybe more of a smoother ride.
You're listening to the Financial Beat with Logan Sadler, Brigari Financial, and his number, if you'd like to have a conversation with Logan, is 888-823-PLAN. I'll give you that number again coming up in just a few minutes here. But right now we're throwing out some old quotes from former presidents and see if we can make some sense out of those when it comes to financial matters. Ronald Reagan is famous for saying, "Trust but verify." Now, you certainly want to be working with a financial advisor that you trust, but you also want to be sure you verify the facts that they're giving you. Try and understand, what they're giving you, and if it doesn't make sense, ask them to explain it in a better way.
Yeah, our founder, Hugh Regari, that was one of his favorite quotes, right? Trust but verify.
Yeah.
And I think that's very useful in a lot of different realms. But in the financial world, I hear it all the time. They're like, hey, you know what? I got sold this annuity, and the advisor told me it's way better than being in the stock market, or it was liquid, or I can get out of it whenever I wanted. And now I found out it has this long surrender charge, right? Or I've heard things like, I'm in the stock market and I've heard I was very conservative, but you know what? The market went down and I sure lost a lot of money. It doesn't seem very conservative to me, right? Did the person lie? Did you not understand it all? Did you not have a long enough conversation? I'm not in the business of calling anybody a liar or saying you didn't listen, right? But I do think it's very important when you're working with an advisor or in any type of field, whether you're getting sold, braces or dental or health insurance or whatever it might be, you want to make sure you understand what it is you're buying or what it is you're being told, and asking a lot of questions and getting as much as you can in writing, I think, is very important to helping understand that, yes, you're trusting, but you're also trying to verify the information.
I know one thing, after all the things that you've told me on this show, Hugh Regari was a really smart guy.
Yes, he was, man. I always say he was ahead of his time.
Yeah. Calvin Coolidge said one time, it takes a great man to be a good listener. When you can find a financial advisor who listens more than he talks, you'll know that you found a potentially good relationship. And I can tell you that when you come see Logan Sadler, he's going to do more listening than he is talking because he wants to get to know you.
Yeah, you're 100% right on that. I think it really is important. Yes, I got to talk and tell you about our firm and educate you on some strategies. But a lot of our first meeting is really just you explain to me what it is you're looking for. What are some of the obstacles you're facing? What are you trying to accomplish in your plan? And really, where can we help build that relationship and that team partnership to really help get you to where it is you're trying to go? And I can't do any of that if you're not telling me where you're trying to go, right? Yeah. If I'm talking the whole time about how good I am, well, that's great, right? For nobody, right? It's really about learning more about what it is you're trying to do and really help asking a lot of questions and really trying to help build that deep relationship as far as what it is you're trying to do. And then we try to fill in with how could our firm help and what tools and strategies could we be implementing to maybe put you in a better situation. And I think that's what a lot of you will find when you come in for that discovery meeting. If you've done it already, we've been getting a lot of you radio listeners coming in that are really fastly approaching retirement, or some of you just starting retirement. And there's a lot of great conversations we've been having about how our firm can really be of value to a lot of you out there that are approaching retirement, and really going into depth about, during our discovery meeting, what we talk about is really what is it you're looking for out of an advisor, what tools and strategies are you interested in or wanting to learn more about, and then helping show you how our firm has really built out a very, very comprehensive strategy to help get you to and through retirement. And it all starts with that discovery meeting.
888-823-PLAN is the number to call if you'd like to arrange one. It's cost-free and obligation-free. 888-823-PLAN. That number is for Brigari Financial with 2 convenient offices in Southern California, Hemet and Redlands. And you can have your conversation with Logan that's not going to cost you a cent, not going to carry with it any strings attached. It's just that simple. It's a conversation to get to know you, and he can get to know you. You can get to know him as well. 888-823-PLAN is your number to call to make it happen. You're listening to the Financial Beat. Ron Stutz here along with Logan Sadler. There's more coming up on the other side of this timeout.
Do you ever find yourself skipping through countless songs trying to find the perfect one? Yeah, we've been there too, and know it can be frustrating. Much like skipping through the countless advertisements from other financial advisors, it can seem like there's so much misinformation. But here on the Financial Beat, you can rest assured we're providing you with the best information possible. So don't push skip on this show, because we have some important information coming up.
We're back now with more of the Financial Beat. Ron Stutz along with the inimitable Logan Sadler. 888-823-PLAN. By inimitable, I mean often imitated but never duplicated. It's impossible to duplicate this guy. Logan, you do such a great job, and I always love doing this radio show with you. 888-823-PLAN is your number to call. 888-823-PLAN. You can have a conversation with Logan Sadler that's cost-free and obligation-free. Dreaming the dream so you can live the dream. What in the world is that all about?
It sounds deep.
It does. Before you can live the retirement dream, you have to figure out what the dream actually looks like in the first place. I think this is going to be fun to talk about this. Let's talk about some of the things that you need to dream about. Let's say that, you sit down one day and you have a conversation with Logan, and Logan says to you, who are you going to hang out with when you're retired? And describe your social circle, if you would. That might be a little more difficult to answer than you think it might be.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that kind of is a good question to ask for retirement planning, right? Because I think a lot about who you hang around and things like that kind of determine about what you'll probably be doing in retirement, right? Those of us that are very active and very go-getters and very antsy and like to stay busy, we probably hang around people that do the same thing, right? So that could also influence the spending and how active and things like that we stay in retirement. And there could be a lot of pros and cons to that, right? I have one client of mine who actually moved to a retirement community, and it was a very active and very expensive group, right? Mm-hmm. And they ended up spending way more on a monthly basis for trips or food or whatever it might be than they probably had ever planned on, right? Because of the circle that they were around, right? It doesn't make things bad or good, just understanding how some of those things can kind of play a role. And I think also hanging around an active group is super important, right? Where I've seen some clients of ours or even friends of ours that are clients where they'll retire and they'll get into these groups where they might travel or they might go play pickleball or they might play golf or they might do whatever it is, right? Might be walking or whatever it might be. And that keeps them a lot more active than they might have been if they just did things on their own, right? If they didn't have that group and that support system to make them get off the couch, right? Or make them get out of the house and to go do things. So I think that could play a huge role in your retirement plan.
Boy, pickleball has really come a long way, hasn't it?
Gosh, it's everywhere, right? I mean, it's basically like if you don't play golf or pickleball nowadays, I feel like I don't know what you do, right? That's all you hear advertisements for nowadays.
I don't think I ever heard of pickleball until 5 or 6 years ago, maybe. It's just everybody doing it now.
It is crazy.
Yeah, I think another important thing to think about is oftentimes when you're working every day, your social circle, you kind of hang out a lot with people that you know from work and that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And after you retire, you may not be close to those folks. So, it may be a whole different scenario.
Yeah, that's true.
Another thing, and we do this a lot at my house, but the question is, after you retire, where are you going to eat? How often will you eat at home, and how often will you eat out? You might really have more time and everything else to go out to eat a lot, but that can get expensive.
Yeah, it can. I mean, there's a reason. There's a lot of local diners out here by us. Like Abby's or some of these local diners out in our Hemet area, or even by our Redlands office, where people just kind of gravitate towards them, right? And I'd say there's a reason why you see more of a senior presence at places like that, right? And the reason is because we're all used to, you have kids and things like that in the house. You're used to cooking for 3, 4, 5 people. And, you're kind of on the go, so you just kind of make things along the way. But when you're retired, you're kind of like, well, it's just me and the wife, or maybe it's just me. I'm just going to go grab some breakfast, right? Or I'm going to go grab something. It's easier than making it. And also, it's nice to get out and enjoy the social circle of maybe eating out and going to have some interactions and things, right? Which is great. But what does that also do, Ron? That means the cost of the food that you're spending, or the cost of money you're spending on food, is probably going to be higher, right?
Yeah.
And I know me and you have talked about this before. We both we're both guilty of enjoying a nice meal out, right? And
exactly.
And which is totally fine. But the other thing is you have to factor in that your cost for things like that might be a lot more than you might have thought of, right? I know a client where I was talking about this with them, and he started laughing. He said, it's funny, is for the first time ever, me and my wife ate out for 3 meals straight, right? We had breakfast, we had lunch, and then we had dinner, and we thought, wow, we probably should only eat out once a day, right? So it's funny because things like that can happen rather quickly, and you just kind of get adjusted to it, and it's important to kind of understand where you see yourself, just spending money in those areas in retirement.
You're listening to the Financial Beat, and again, your number to call if you'd like to get in touch with Logan Sadler at Regary Financial is 888-823-PLAN. That's 888-823-7526. But use the word plan. Helps to remember it that way. In fact, go ahead and write it down if you would. 888-823-PLAN. We're talking about living the dream. You're retired, and it's important to think about, you got all this time now. You don't have to go to work. What activities will your average day consist of? I would say that it would be helpful for everybody listening to this show. Just think about that for a moment. What are you going to do all day?
Yeah, absolutely, right? I mean, it's one of those things where, Saturday and Sunday when we're working, right, we're home, right? So maybe we mow the yard, maybe we trim the trees, maybe we pull some weeds, maybe we clean the house, do the dishes, clean the counters, right? All that fun stuff that we all have to do sometimes.
Really?
But we do a lot of that in 2 days, right? So now all of a sudden we're retired, and every day is a Saturday or Sunday, right? So what are you going to spend your time doing? And also, what do you want to spend your time doing, right? That's the nice time is you actually have an idea, and it's the first time in your life in a long time where you probably have a choice over what you want to do throughout the day. And so finding those activities where you want to leverage your day, and what do you want your day to consist of, right? One of our clients who came on board last year, he cracks me up, right? He's used to getting up super early, right? He always got up about 3 o'clock in the morning, went to work for 30, 40 years, and basically that was his life, right? He worked his butt off, raised some kids, did the thing a lot of us do, right? And in his retirement, he cracks me up because he still gets up at 3:30 in the morning.
Oh, wow.
And he goes for like a 4 or 5 mile walk every day, right? And the best part about it, though, Ron, is you'll probably love this, where he gets home, about 5:30 or so, maybe 6 o'clock, depending on how long the walk is. And then he'll take a nap, right? He'll nap from like 6 to 8, he said, or 6 to 7 or something, right? But his body's just so used to getting up, and he loves the feeling of getting up early, but he doesn't have to stay up, right? He can kind of do what he wanted to do, and he got his exercise in for the day. But, that's kind of how he charts his course out, to where he kind of figures out what he wants to do after that walk. Maybe it's take a nap, maybe it's not. But it's funny how I found that very, very comical, because, it's funny to get up that early, but then, hey, you got your exercise in. Why not take a little snooze and catch back up on some sleep over the last 30 years you might have missed, right?
Yeah. Well, this guy obviously is taking care of this next question, but you need to think about what you're going to do for exercise. You don't want to just sit on the couch all day, watch TV, and eat tuna fish out of a can.
No, absolutely. Yeah, we have a lot of clients, and again, we're very, very blessed where our firm's been around a long time, and we've had a lot of clients that have been with us for very, very long periods of time. And so to see how a lot of them have aged over the last 5, 10, 15, maybe 20 years plus of being with our firm, it is rather a miracle to see how some of them have aged, where they've just they look the same, they act the same, and they walk the same as they did 5, 10, 15, 20 plus years ago. One thing I have noticed, and I'm no health expert, right? And I'm not here giving any medical advice. This show's more about financials.
Yeah.
But I will say I have seen a lot more of the people that stay active, right? Maybe it's, husband and wife take walks together. They maybe do a gym class. They might play pickleball. They might golf, whatever it is, right? Those of them that have stayed up and active and very engaged in things of exercise, they have typically stayed, their body has stayed very active as they've aged, right? And so some of the ones I've seen where maybe they had some issues with, back pain or with knee pain or whatever it is, and they weren't able to move around as much or just didn't want to anymore, I've definitely seen them, in some cases, age a little bit more rapidly. And so I definitely think exercise is one of the biggest important things when you're transitioning to retirement. Yes, financials and all that's important, but also keeping that healthy mind and that healthy body going to keep some gas in the tank to go another 20 or 30 years.
Yeah, well, Tom Petty once said, never slow down, never grow old.
Yep. Great song.
Yeah. Think about how much you want to travel in your retirement and where you want to travel. I guess make sure you're on the same page.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you said, kind of charting out where you kind of identify where you want to go, how much do you want to spend, what do you think that budget's going to look like on those trips and things like that. Are we doing 1 a year, 5 a year, right? 1 every other year? What is it going to look like? And kind of understanding that, I think, is super important. And one of the things, a lot of people say, well, Logan, how the heck does this pertain to financial planning, right? one thing I always tell clients is when you're identifying what you want your retirement plan to look like, you're also identifying what you want your budget to look like, what you want your travel plans to look like, and what you want to do with your time, right? It's all wrapped into one thing, right? The financial end, we call it the income plan, right? The income plan is really the gasoline to the retirement plan, right? All of this stuff is great. Exercise, travel, food, all of it's great. But if you don't have a good income plan, you don't have enough gas in the tank to keep it going, it doesn't mean much, right? So we definitely want to start with a solid income plan. But really why, as an advisor, I ask a lot of these questions and take a little bit more of a deeper approach to the not just the financial end, but also the emotional end of what we want things to look like into retirement. It's super important because that helps give a good feel of how this plan is going to unfold over this next 20 years. And again, we want to make sure when we're building a plan that's built to your expectations, it's built to fit your lifestyle, and to also make sure it's built to last the next 20 or 30 years of your retirement.
Yeah, a lot of things to think about, that's for sure. And Logan, I'm going to give out the number here in just a second again, but what is that discovery meeting that we talk about all the time? What does that consist of?
Yeah, so how it works here is it's really make it as easy as we can on the show, where if those of you out there are getting closer to retirement, maybe you're 50, 55 years old, maybe you're 60, 65 years old plus, right? And you're at a spot where you're just looking over, maybe you have a 401k, maybe you got an IRA, you've gathered some assets, but you're kind of looking at, how do I help put together this financial plan, or where do I start with looking at an income plan? That's really where our firm comes in, is we specialize in retirement planning. So most of our clients are, like I said, are typically approaching retirement or just starting, and are looking for a team to help them put the picture and help put the pieces together for their retirement plan. And so what you could do is you can call in on the radio show. You're going to leave a message, and basically somebody from my office gives you a call back first thing Monday morning, and you could schedule a time to do a phone call, a Zoom call, or even come into the office. And you don't meet with anybody else. You actually meet with myself, Logan Sadler, and we actually sit down and go through our discovery process. At the discovery meeting, we ask you, what do you want retirement to look like? What is your experience with money? What is your experience with investing? Are you comfortable with it? What type of solutions and strategies are you interested in, and what also concerns you about the next 20 or 30 years of your retirement plan? And then we help put together a custom retirement plan. We call it a retirement plan blueprint for you and your family to help get you to and through retirement.
888-823-PLAN, 888-823-PLAN. Hope you've written down that number already, but why not jot it down really quickly and go ahead and call the number right now, 888-823-PLAN. That will be good for you for a discovery meeting, getting to know you conversation. It's not going to cost you anything at all, not going to obligate you to do anything beyond that. Wherever you are in Southern California or wherever you listen to this show, call that number, and then you can get together with Logan Sadler, talk about your situation. And again, no money changing hands at first there, and no obligation at all, no strings attached. 888-823-7526. I'm Ron Stutz along with Logan Sadler, and we'll have more coming up in just a moment. Thanks for listening to the Financial Beat.
Serenity now! Serenity now!
What is that? When my blood pressure gets too high, the man on the tape tells me to say,
Serenity now!
Does your financial plan have you constantly needing to calm down? Find your serenity now and keep listening to The Financial Beat.
We're back now with more of The Financial Beat, and the beat goes on, as they say. Logan Sadler, of course, is here. We're going to talk to Logan in just a second more about your situation, your financial situation. Logan, really quickly here, I know that you have a whole bunch of YouTube videos out there, and there are podcasts available. So not only can people listen to you on the radio at the appointed time every week, but there are other ways to get information from you before they make that phone call. So you want to tell us how you get to those YouTube videos?
Yeah, for a lot of you out there that have maybe been wanting to come in and meet with us and are wanting to find out more about us, or maybe you're just trying to find out some more information about retirement planning and the whole world of investments, you can go ahead and head over to the YouTube channel, type in The Financial Beat, and you'll see my name right there, The Financial Beat with Logan Sadler. And we upload a video there each week for you on different retirement education and retirement planning topics that I think a lot of you will find very insightful, maybe to your situation, or at least give you some better general knowledge. So again, a lot of videos uploaded there weekly on Social Security, investments, risk tolerance, right? Maybe even some little tips and tricks as far as how much should you have saved by age 65, right? So a lot of these fun little topics we do on there. And again, we upload there each week for you to check out. So head over there, click subscribe, and follow along.
And remember that number, that all-important phone number that we give out so many times in each show because it's so important, 888-823-PLAN. That's 888-823-7526. But the easy way to remember it is by incorporating the word plan. We all need one, 888-823-PLAN. Got a quote of the week here for you, Logan. I know you're going to enjoy this one. It's from Richard Friedman. He said, "Money will buy you a fine dog, but only love can make it wag its tail."
I do love that, actually.
Yeah, that's...
I'm a big dog person, and I have two dogs, and one of them's a big old fluffy lab, and she makes me laugh like hilariously, right? Because, like you said, they're rather expensive dogs sometimes, and it's great. You could pay all the money in the world for something, but only when you love on her, she could wag that tail around, right? And you could just see the joy in, most of those dogs when you give them love and stuff like that. You could definitely see it really changes them, and they're, dogs are a good animal where they really just kind of connect with certain individuals, and it's something fun to see.
Well, I'll tell you what, they're members of the family. I consider them to be members of our family. I mean, people who go out and buy a dog just because they want to possess a dog. I mean, that's, it's like one of your kids or something. It's crazy. So
it's true. I always say the one thing I only hate one thing about dogs.
What?
And the one thing I hate about them is they just don't live long enough, right?
Exactly.
That's the only thing.
And it's so painful when you have to say goodbye to them. That's for sure.
Yep.
Hey,
I agree.
Let's talk about risk takers. What percentage of your clients consider themselves to be comfortable with risk, and what percentage consider themselves to be risk averse?
Yeah, that's a great statistic there. I'd say probably 60% of our clients, I would say, are risk adverse, and maybe 40% of them are wanting to take risk.
Yeah.
And the reason why I picked that statistic and why it probably breaks down more like that for our firm is because a lot more of the people that come in to meet with us are typically, around 50 to 60 years old, and maybe a little bit older as well. So they're typically approaching retirement years, or maybe even just starting retirement. So I think a lot of the time their big swinging for the fence years where they're wanting to take a lot of risk is typically behind them, or it's slowing down, right? So a lot of times they're typically like, hey, you know what, Logan, I've made money, I have money. Now how do I protect it, preserve it, and turn it into income streams in our retirement years? So I would say that's why we probably have a little bit more of our clients that are risk adverse. But again, we do have some risk takers, definitely.
It's really sad because if you ask people how comfortable they are with risk, a lot of people, when you take a deep dive into their portfolio and you take a look at what they're actually doing, what they're doing inside their portfolio doesn't often match up with the way they say they feel about risk, right?
Yeah, I think you hit it right there on the nail, right? Because a lot of people say, well, you know what, I really just am not a fan of risk. Man, when the market goes up and down, sure makes my blood pressure go up, right? My heart beat fast. Well, then you look at the portfolio and they go, oh, I'm very conservative. And you look at the portfolio and you go, well, really? Because you're like 85% in stocks, right? And actually of the 85% you have in stocks, 40% of it's in just one stock, right? So they're like, oh, would that be more aggressive? It's like, yeah, if I had to give you a risk score based off of, 0 being conservative and 100 being most aggressive, you're probably like an 85, which would be way up there on the risk scale, right?
Yeah.
And then they go, oh, wow, I had no idea, right? So we definitely have some of those conversations. And I think it is amazing to me how many times people's portfolios don't necessarily reflect what their risk tolerance is, whether that means conservative or aggressive. And a lot of times it's not because someone did something wrong or any of that. A lot of times it's because they, number one, have maybe been told false information, or they really haven't taken the time to have their portfolio ran through and have a proper analysis done of what is aggressive and what is conservative.
Logan, for the folks out there listening to the show right now who don't know how much risk they're taking, how can they tell?
Yeah, that's a great point. So, luckily there's a lot of cool programs and things like that out there nowadays, and we use a lot of technology-driven data for programming and things like that for some of our planning reports we do. So there's many reports you could have your advisor run or meet with an advisor and have them run him, and it's called like Riskalyze, or there's hidden levers. There's a lot of these different types of programs out there that will show you and help you identify your risk. But a lot of you out there, maybe if you don't have access to things like that, you could typically look at how much percentage do you have in stocks. If so, which stocks? And then the money you have in bonds, what types of bonds is it, right? Because just because you have money in bonds doesn't necessarily mean it's safe, right? Bonds are typically safer right? So they're not typically, doesn't mean there's no risk. It means there's definitely risk, but it means that there's probably less than stocks. And depending on what types of bonds you're in, they still could have more or less risk than maybe other bonds. So you want to, first off, I think, take a look at that. But I think that's one of the really great ideas and one of the great facets of working with an advisor is they should be able to show you, not tell you, but show you, hey, here's where we're at and here's where your risk level is based off these investments and here's why.
Mm-hmm. It's really helpful to know all that stuff, and you do a really good job of explaining these things. That's one reason I enjoy talking to you every week on this show, because you break it down so that we can all understand it. So, hey,
well, thank you.
if you have a conversation with Logan Sadler, he's not going to talk over your head, I promise, and he's going to break it down so that we can all understand it. Why do so many people take unnecessary risks with their retirement money? I mean, we're talking about people who are, close to the red zone, close to the age where they're going to retire. Still, they're risking a lot of what they have.
Yeah, I think for a couple of reasons, right? There's one is maybe they have a lack of education in the money game, right? Maybe they're not as familiar with what they're risking, right? Sometimes it's very easy to risk if you really don't know what you're risking. And all of a sudden that, big downturn comes and you go, well, what happened to 50% of my money, right? And it's like, well, you were too aggressive. Well, dang it, had no idea, right? So I think you see a lot of people that maybe are just not aware of the level of risk they're taking. Also, maybe some people feel that they need to stay in the game to maybe generate these big returns because maybe they feel they don't have enough money, right? They feel like, I need to make these big returns because I need more money saved. I only have $550,000 and I need $700,000 to retire. And maybe this is just numbers they're making up in their head. And I think a lot of the times it's because people haven't done the proper planning, right? They haven't met with an advisor to know, okay, here's how much more money I need. Here's the exact amount I need to generate this type of income based off my Social Security, based off maybe a pension, based off of inflation and things like that. Here's really what I need. And maybe I do have enough, right? Or maybe I am taking too much risk. And a lot of the times I think the question is, Ron, a lot of them aren't aware of, they know what percentage of return they want, but I always ask them, what percentage of return is worth losing 30% of your money or 40% of your money? Mm-hmm. And that answer's got to be worth it, right? And most of the time it's not. But I think it's really important for a lot of you out there is to really understand where you're at on your retirement planning journey and identifying, am I taking too much risk or am I positioned properly based off what I need my assets to do for me over the next few years?
888-823-PLAN. 888-823-PLAN is the number to call for Regari Financial if you'd like to have a longer conversation about all of this with Logan Sadler as it relates to your individual situation. 888-823-PLAN is your number to call. Logan, a lot of people out there listening to the show right now may be asking this question. Is there a way to significantly reduce portfolio risk without also significantly reducing opportunities for growth?
Yeah, there sometimes can be that happy medium. We have a lot of, we use a lot of software and things like that where we'll go over with a client. Actually, one I was meeting with just the other day who came on board here from the radio show where the client had about 30-40% of their money in bonds, right? And they had about $1 million. So they had about $300,000 or $400,000 in bonds. They were very, very low rated bonds that have performed pretty bad, right? And they've seen a lot of ups and downs in those bonds over the last few years with interest rates. And they were actually in a bond fund that actually really hasn't made any money in the last 5 years, right? So they were in one of the big name bond funds in their 401k. Yeah. And it was funny because by simply removing those bonds and using things like annuities or different types of bond ladder strategies, or even some of the alternatives we use like real estate, structured notes, some of these other asset classes that maybe have similar risk tolerances to what they were in, was actually able to reduce their overall risk while actually producing a higher average rate of return, right? It's like they thought something was magic, right? They're like, well, wait a minute, by moving over with your firm, doing the stuff you're telling us, you're going to keep our risk actually even lower than now. However, our returns are going to go up over a period of time, right? And I go, well, yeah, because by doing these three things, we're eliminating these risks, and as well as we're now offsetting risk maybe in some annuities that can't lose any money. also in some real estate and some other diversified asset classes like structured notes that are able to help protect against downside. And they go, well, man, that sounds great. Why haven't we been doing that, right? And a lot of the times it's because you're not working with an advisor that has access to some of these tools out there where you really don't know what you need until you meet with an advisor, have them and really go over an analysis of what your situation is, what are you trying to accomplish, and really help putting all these different tools and pieces of the puzzle together.
Okay, one more question I want to ask you about here. How can someone know how much financial risk is appropriate for their situation?
Yeah, that's a really great question. I think one of the things we really try to do is go through a lot of risk analysis where I'll ask clients like, hey, you know what? If you could look back over the next 5 or 10 years and say, well, you know what? We did a pretty decent rate of return. What does decent mean to you, right? What is a decent rate of return? Some clients say, hey, man, if I average 3 or 4%, I'd be happy. Some clients say, well, I need to average 12%, right? Dave Ramsey says I can get 12, so I want 12, right? And it really just depends on what people think is reasonable. And a lot of times I'll ask that next question with, well, that's great. Well, what happens if the market went down over that period of time and you lost 30%? How would you feel? And they go, well, 30%, I'd only be down, $300,000 if I had $1 million. I think I'd still be okay. I think I'd still be able to retire and I would hang in there. Well, you know what? We're probably positioned pretty close to where we want to be risk-wise, and we probably could have X amount in the market and do X amount of, of risk tolerance things with this portion. The other flip side of that is some clients go, wow, if I lost 30%, I'd only have $700,000, which means I'd produce, $1,000 or $2,000 a month less of income. So I don't think I could take that amount of risk, right? It's like, well, perfect. Now here's why we got to make these adjustments. So I think it's really more about having those conversations and really talking through it with the clients and showing them in writing, here's how these types of downturns could hurt us. And for some of you, here's how these types of downturns wouldn't hurt us, right? I think it's really more about having those conversations. And Ron, that's one thing we talk about here on the show all the time is how important having the right advisor and the right team is for someone, because a lot of advisors are really, really good at growing assets, and a lot of you are pretty good in your 401k at picking a few good funds. But I think it's really more about taking a deeper dive into some of these planning topics that I think can really help evolve and enhance your overall situation by giving you the knowledge and the tools and power to really help structure a proper plan and have somebody there, a team there to help guide you to and through retirement, because I guarantee you it's a rocky road over those 20 or 30 years, and you want to make sure you have a plan that's built and built to last.
Very well expressed, Logan. Hey, if you'd like to have a conversation with Logan Sadler, remember that you not only get Logan Sadler, but you get an outstanding team of folks at Regary Financial who are experienced, have been doing this for a long time, and can help you get to and through retirement. It's a team effort. Logan Sadler, of course, the Vice President and Chief Investment Officer, but a lot of other good people at Regary. 888-823-PLAN. That is 888-823-PLAN. Your number to call if you'd like to have a conversation with Logan Sadler at Regary. Remember also, they have terrific partnerships with local CPAs, attorneys, real estate agents, mortgage lenders, Medicare specialists as well, to help offer well-rounded guidance in all things financial for their clients, and that means you. You can get a discovery meeting at no cost. No cost, no obligation. 888-823-PLAN is your number to call. You can talk about some of the things that we talked about on this show, or you may have other questions that aren't related to anything we're talking about today. Either way, you get a conversation with Logan for free, and then you can move on from there. 888-823-PLAN. You're listening to the Financial Beat. I'm Ron Stutz along with Logan Sadler, and we'll have more coming up in just a moment. First, we'll take this quick time out.
Like what you're hearing on the show? Did you know that Logan Sadler also has a podcast? On the podcast, you'll hear more discussion about important retirement planning topics like Social Security planning, tax-saving strategies, and much more. Subscribe to the Financial Beat podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and all major podcast streaming services.
Don't you want to see sharp and not be flat in retirement? This is the Financial Beat.
This is the Financial Beat with Logan Sadler. And Logan, I know you'd played sports a lot growing up, and I certainly played baseball when I was a kid. Mm-hmm. And Satchel Paige, one of those fellows I always looked up to, and sadly enough, he did not get as much publicity as he should have, and didn't get the opportunities he should, because he was playing in the old Negro leagues. Yep. And Satchel Paige was amazing, but he had some really really interesting quotes. I think one of them was like, "Don't look back, somebody might be gaining on you." But,
Yeah, that's a good one.
But another one, he said, "How old would you be if you didn't know how old you was?" Well, that's a good question for all of us. How old would you be if you didn't know how old you were?
Well, what's funny, I'd say high school is some good days there for a lot of us, right? Or maybe college.
Yeah.
But I would probably say, I'd say probably 15, 16. There's a lot of exciting things going on there. Or I'd probably fast forward to like 22 or 23. Just because you're kind of, you're an adult then at that age, you could do a lot of things and you're typically still in good shape and all that stuff. So I would say either high school or 22 or so, somewhere in that age, right? Where you got your youth on your side, but also we would all probably do a couple things a little different, right?
Yeah. And you don't have all these responsibilities and, taking care of kids and having bills and everything else. So.
Even though it's all fun, right? But it's a lot of work.
Exactly. In some ways, you wouldn't trade what's going on right now for anything in the world.
Great way to put it.
Yeah. You're listening to The Financial Beat with Logan Sadler. There's more coming up in just a moment.
I'm telling you, who's on first, what's on second, I don't know's on third.
Do you know the fellow's name?
Yes.
Well, then who's playing first?
Yes.
I mean the fellow's name on first base.
Who?
The guy on first base.
Who is on first?
Well, what are you asking me for?
If your head is spinning from confusing financial terms and data, clear up the confusion right here on The Financial Beat.
We're back now with more of The Financial Beat. The beat goes on, as they say. Logan Sadler is here. And, of course, we talk on a regular basis about getting you to and through retirement. And for each person listening today, that means something different. We're all different. There's no one-size-fits-all when it comes to retirement planning. So why not have a conversation with Logan Sadler, and he can tailor-make a program to help you get to and through retirement in the most efficient way to achieve the kind of lifestyle you've always wanted in your retirement years. Your Financial Beat number is 888-823-PLAN. That is 888-823-PLAN. 2 convenient offices of Regary Financial, one in Redlands, one in Hemet. It's up to you. But first, it'll start probably with a phone call and maybe a Zoom meeting. 888-823-PLAN is your number to call, and it's not going to cost you a cent. So why not call today, reach out, make contact, and maybe you've been listening to the show for quite some time and just haven't gotten around to it, but make today the day you stop procrastinating. Hey, we got some great mailbag questions coming up in just a second here, but before we get to those, let me ask you kind of an off-the-wall question here, Logan. What's something that people would never guess just by looking at you?
Oh man, I'm not going to get real deep on this one. I'll probably, most people would never guess I'm a big grass guy. I enjoy looking at a nice lawn.
Oh yeah, I thought you were going in a different direction there for a second.
No, I love a good lawn, and I typically like to do it myself.
Yeah.
But I was trying to go somewhere else with that, but I would say that's probably all I could think of right now. That's a hard one to come up with there.
Okay, big grass guy, but not what you might be thinking.
Yeah, not the other way.
Well, let's go to the mailbag here, or sometimes we call it the request line because these questions come in a variety of ways. Brian is in Winchester. He has a good question. He says, my kids are both under 6 years old, but and you can identify with that, I guess, Logan.
I can, yep.
My kids are both under 6, but I'm already thinking about college. If I want to be sure college is covered for both of them, how much should I be saving each month now? Or should it even be my goal to pay for all of their college? Maybe I should let them have some skin in the game.
Yeah, this is a very big question I get a lot of times, and I think it's a very personal question depending on, personal preference. Me personally, I like the idea of putting a lot of money towards our kids' college, or at least being able to help them out with it. But I don't think I want to pay 100% of it, right? Because I think it's an important attribute to allow them to have some skin in the game, right? What I've even had some clients do is make the kids feel like they're paying, right? And then are getting a loan or whatever it is. And then at the end of it, the parents end up paying it off anyway, right? Mm-hmm. That way, while they're going, they actually feel a little bit more responsible, because I've seen plenty of kids, and I'm sure everyone listening to the show knows somebody where they got a scholarship, everything was free, or the parents were paying for everything, and man, the kid just didn't really care much about it, right? It was like, well, I'm here because my parents are kind of making me, right? And maybe they didn't get the degree, maybe they took too long, or maybe they weren't really putting their best foot forward. And I think when the kids have a little bit more skin in the game, I think it naturally, a lot of us could reflect back to a situation where it's like, well, this was given to me for free, or I've really had to work my butt off for this, so I'm probably going to treat it a little bit better, right? So I think that's kind of the route you got to kind of take there as far as what is your personal preference. And if you are going to start saving, I mean, depending on how much you need, you could do the math. I mean, if you need $500 a month, that's $6,000 a year times, let's just say 10 years, that's 60 grand saved, right? So you can kind of play with some numbers there, and obviously you can invest it and it can make money and things like that. But I think you really got to come down to that. What is your overall target to have saved? And then we could basically back that out and see, okay, this is how much per month we need to start putting away now.
Okay, Brian, if you want to have a longer conversation with Logan about that, he can probably offer you some ideas. 888-823-PLAN, 888-823-PLAN. That goes for anybody who wants to have a conversation with Logan Sadler about anything financial. Got another question here from Phil in Banning. And Phil says, I've always assumed that I would work until a conventional retirement age, like 65 or something like that, but I'll be 62 in a few months, and since I could start Social Security at that point, I'm tempted to just go ahead and retire then. Is that generally a bad idea?
Yeah, that's a great question, Phil. I would say no, it's not generally a bad idea. A lot of the times the strived age of 65 or 68 or whatever target you pick, a lot of the times it's a roadmap you're building, right? You're ideally, if I could work to this age, this would work. So a lot of the times we never really reach that age. However, it's good to have goals. However, we don't want to retire too early, right? I think a lot of the times people sometimes pull the plug a little too early and they go, oh, you know what? An extra couple of years of putting away money, an extra couple of years of not touching my money, a couple extra years of letting that grow, a couple of years of extra letting my Social Security grow, and having medical insurance premiums I'm having to pay now till 65 can sometimes be a pretty big cripple in the crutch there as far as how your overall retirement plan can go. So I'll never say it's a bad idea, but I definitely think you really need to run the numbers, look at your plan, get with an advisor or give us a call, and let's run all the information and making sure we have some really, really accurate data to show us if we're going to be okay by retiring early. And if we're leaving money on the table, how much money, and making sure we're aware of what our retirement could look like versus what it's going to look like now, and just making sure we're going to be okay long term.
Phil, thank you so much for the question. And again, you can follow up by calling 888-823-PLAN. And Logan will be very happy to talk to you. And one more question today, Logan. It's from Rita in Riverside. And Rita says, I'm probably in a unique situation compared to most people that you see. Well, not necessarily. She says, I'm 58 and I have well over $1 million in retirement savings, but I also have more than $30,000 in credit card debt thanks to some poor life choices in recent years. Is it worth pulling money out of retirement to clean up the debt?
Ooh, good question. What I would say here, Rita, is, it sounds like you've done a lot of really, really great things of years and years of good choices to save and put away money. And now it seems like we're in a little bit of rut here of some bad choices. And one thing I always say is, you show me anybody out there that's never made a bad choice, we'll show you a liar, right? We've all made a bad choice here or there.
Yeah.
Now, it is all about how we clean this up. I'm not typically a big proponent of taking retirement funds to pay down credit cards or personal debt. However, it really does depend on how much personal debt we have. You said $30,000, but what is our credit card interest on there? Is there some payment programs? Is there 0% interest for X amount? Is there anything we could do to help get the interest down? Because a lot of times, pulling money out of your retirement accounts might cost you 20 or 30% or 40% in taxes, depending on your tax rate and which state you live in. So I think it's super important to let's run the numbers and see if it makes sense. And maybe even putting a payment plan together to do it out of the retirement accounts is sometimes better over a year or two to spread those taxes out. So really, I'd love you to give us a call. We can go over how you're invested, what your retirement plan looks like, and then help structuring what may or may not be the best way to help really start tackling that debt.
Why might now, this particular time that we're living through right now, why is it a good idea to go ahead and give your office a call and stop putting it off?
Yeah, there's a lot of you out there that are, really getting close to retirement or maybe just start retirement and really are looking to get, I have a lot of stuff coming up. I've done well. I put money away, but what the heck do I do with it, right? How do I create a retirement plan? How do I retire and have an income stream that's going to be built to last 20 or 30 years? And there's so many of these types of topics that are going on. There's inflation out there. There's potential wars going on. There's presidential elections, right? There's always going to be some type of variable in the way. Yeah. And I think it's really important to help rely on a solid team that's helped build hundreds of retirement plans over the years and manage, hundreds of millions of dollars to make sure of, you have a team that's built these plans before and they're built to last. And I know that if something happens, we're going to have somebody to turn to help guide us through this tricky situation. And that is exactly what our team has been doing for a number of years. And we really have a solid team put together. We work with a lot of different real estate agents, mortgage lenders, estate planning attorneys, Medicare experts, tax professionals, and a lot of these different types of professionals you'll need to help put those pieces of the puzzle together. And it all starts with making that call for your Discovery meeting to come in to see if our firm would be the right one to bring some value to you and your family in your retirement.
And that number to call is 888-823-7526. But the easy way to remember that is by calling 888-823-PLAN. You need a plan to get to and through retirement. Logan Sadler can help with that. He's the Vice President, Chief Investment Officer at Regary Financial. And if you haven't talked with Logan yet, you're really missing out on some good advice and some good wisdom and some educational stuff that is available to you for absolutely free with no strings attached. 888-823-PLAN is your number to call. That number is for Regary Financial in Southern California, Hemet and Redlands, couple of convenient offices. Logan Sadler has a great team assembled there. 888-823-PLAN is your number to call if you'd like to have a discovery meeting. No cost, no obligation, and it's something that Logan offers to everybody who listens to this show. Call right now, 888-823-PLAN. I'm Ron Stutz along with Logan Sadler. Logan, I got to say, it's been fun being with you today.
Yeah, as always, Ron, I enjoy talking about retirement education, having some laughs along the way, and I appreciate each of the viewers and listeners out there for stopping by and checking out the show. And I look forward to being back here again next week with another episode.
Join us again next time for the next edition of the Financial Beat with Logan Sadler.
Regary Financial and Insurance Services, Inc. and BD Financial Group, Inc. are separate and independent entities. The information provided in this presentation is presented for educational and informational purposes only and does not constitute financial, investment, tax, or legal advice, nor does it constitute an offer or solicitation to buy or sell any securities.